Welcome to Fairy Tale Dreams, where every story holds a new adventure. Settle in, and let's begin.
It was lovely out in the country. It was a wonderful summer. The wheat was yellowing in the fields, the oats were green, the hay was gathered in stacks in the meadows, and the stork walked on his long red legs, speaking Egyptian, a language he had learned from his mother. Around the fields and meadows stretched vast forests, and within the forests lay deep lakes. Yes, it was wonderfully beautiful out in the country. In a sunny open spot stood an old manor house surrounded by deep canals. From its walls down to the water grew burdocks, so tall that children could stand upright beneath some of them without stooping. It was as desolate there as in the deepest forest thicket. It was there that a young duck sat on her nest, hatching her ducklings. She had been sitting for so long that she was simply tired of waiting. Besides, in that wilderness she rarely had visitors. The other ducks preferred swimming in the canals to sitting under a burdock leaf and quacking with her. At last the eggs began to crack one by one. Peep! Peep! Came a sound from within, and from each egg a little head appeared. Quack! Quack! Said the duck, and all the ducklings gathered around her under the green leaves, looking out in all directions. Their mother allowed them to look as much as they liked, for the color green is good for the eyes. Oh, how big the world is, cried all the ducklings. Indeed, they felt they had much more room now than they had inside the eggs. Do you think this is the whole world? Said the mother. Oh ho, it stretches much further beyond the garden all the way to the watermelon patch. Though I have never been there myself. Well, let me see if you are all here now, she continued, standing up. No, not all of you. The largest egg is still quite whole. How much longer will this take? I shall soon lose my patience. And she lay back down on the nest. Well, how is it going? Asked an old duck who had come to visit. I'm struggling with this one egg. I simply cannot get the better of it, said the duck. It won't break. But look at the others. Have you ever seen such darling ducklings? They all look exactly like their father, and he, the scoundrel, hasn't come to visit me even once. Let me see the egg that won't hatch, said the old duck. Believe me, that is a turkey egg. I was once deceived that way myself. I had such trouble and worry with those little ones. They are all afraid of the water. I simply couldn't entice them in. I quacked and clucked. Nothing helped. Show me the egg. Yes, it's a turkey's. Leave it be. You'd better teach the other children to swim. No, I'll sit a little longer, replied the young duck. I've sat so long already I can sit a few more days. As you wish, said the old duck and went away. At last the large egg cracked. Peep, peep, squeaked the duckling and tumbled out. But how big and ugly it was! The duck looked at it and said, What a huge duckling! It looks nothing like the others. Could it be a turkey chick? Wait, I'll find out. It shall go into the water even if I have to push it in myself. The next day the weather was wonderfully beautiful. The sun shone on all the burdocks. The duck went down to the canal with her whole family. Splash! And she jumped into the water. Quack, quack, she called. And the ducklings jumped in one after another. The water closed over their heads, but in an instant they popped up and swam excellently. Their legs worked on their own. Even the ugly gray duckling swam along with them. No, that's no turkey, said the mother. See how well he uses his legs, and how straight he holds himself. No, he is my own child. Actually, he is even handsome if you look at him closely. Quack, quack! Follow me, children. I will show you how big the world is and introduce you to the poultry yard. Just stay close to me so no one steps on you, and watch out for cats. And they went into the poultry yard. A terrible noise was heard. 2 families were fighting over an eel's head, which in the end went to the cat. Look, that's how it is in the world, said the mother, wetting her beak, for she too would have liked the eel's head. Now step forward and bow nicely to that old duck over there. She is the most important one here. Of Spanish blood, that's why she is so fat. See, she has a red rag on her leg. That is wonderfully beautiful and the highest distinction a duck can receive. It means the masters don't want to lose her and that both people and animals must recognize her. Go on, walk nicely and don't turn your toes in. A well-bred duckling keeps them wide apart, like its father and mother. Just like that, see? Now bow your heads and say quack. The ducklings bowed their heads and said quack. But the other ducks in the yard looked at them and said loudly, ha! As if we weren't enough already, now these show up. And on top of it, one of them is so hideous. Oh, we can't stand him! And instantly a duck flew at him and bit him in the neck. Leave him alone, said the mother. He isn't doing anyone any harm. Yes, but he is too big and looks like nothing else, replied the duck who had bitten him. So he must be pecked. You have very lovely children, said the old duck with the rag on her leg. Only that one over there is a bit ugly. It would be good if you could make him over again. That is impossible, Your Grace, said the mother. He is not handsome, but he has a good character and swims just as well as the others. Even better, I dare say. I think in time he will grow into himself and become smaller. She stroked his back and smoothed his feathers. Besides, she added, he is a drake, so beauty doesn't matter so much. I think he will be very strong and make his way in life. The other children are very darling, said the old duck. Make yourselves at home, and if you find an eel's head, you may bring it to me. And so the ducklings made themselves at home. But the poor duckling who had hatched last and was so ugly was pecked and mocked by everyone. He was bitten and pushed not only by the ducks, but by the chickens as well. He is too big, they all said. And a turkey cock, who had been born with spurs, and therefore imagined himself an emperor, puffed himself out like a ship under full sail, flew straight at the duckling, gobbled, and turned red in the face with rage. The poor duckling did not know where to go or what to do. He was very sad because he was so ugly, and because the whole poultry yard laughed at him. Thus passed the first day, but the days that followed were even worse. Everyone chased the poor duckling. Even his sisters were angry with him and constantly shouted, "If only the cat would catch you, you wretch!" And the mother said, "I wish you were far away." The ducks bit him, the chickens pecked him, and the girl who fed the poultry kicked him with her foot. At last the duckling could endure it no more and flew over the fence. The little birds in the bushes flew up in a fright. They fly away only because I am so ugly, thought the duckling, closing his eyes, but he ran on anyway until he reached a great marsh where wild ducks lived. There he stayed the whole night. He was exhausted and his heart was breaking with sorrow. In the morning, the wild ducks flew up and saw their new companion. "What kind of bird are you, Nertuns?" they asked. The duckling turned in every direction and bowed as well as he could. "You are very ugly," said the wild ducks, "but that is no business of ours, as long as you don't think of marrying into our family." Poor thing, he wasn't thinking of marriage at all. He only wanted permission to lie in the reeds and drink the marsh water. The duckling stayed there for 2 whole days. Then came 2 wild geese. They had not been hatched long and were therefore very bold. "Listen, friend," they said, "you are so ugly that we actually like you. Will you come with us and be a bird of passage? Nearby there is another marsh where some lovely, beautiful geese live. They are all young ladies and know how to say quack. You might find your fortune there, even though you are so ugly." Bang, bang, suddenly rang out, and the 2 wild geese fell dead in the reeds. The water was stained with their blood. Bang, bang was heard again, and whole flocks of wild geese flew up from the reeds. The shots came thick and fast. It was a great hunt. The hunters had surrounded the marsh. Blue smoke drifted like a cloud through the dark trees and hung far over the water. Hunting dogs came splashing into the marsh. Splash, splash. The reeds and rushes bent in every direction, and the poor duckling could hardly breathe for fear. He turned his head to hide it under his wing, but at that very moment, a terrifyingly large dog appeared before him. Its tongue hung out. Its eyes gleamed wickedly. It thrust its muzzle right at the duckling, bared its sharp teeth, and splash, splash. It ran off without touching him. Thank God, sighed the duckling. I am so ugly that even the dog doesn't want to eat me. He crouched down and stayed there while the shot whistled through the reeds and bang followed bang in the air. It was late in the evening before all was quiet, but the poor duckling still did not dare to get up. He waited a few hours more, then looked cautiously around and ran away as fast as he could. He ran over fields and meadows, and such a storm raged that he could hardly make his way forward. When night fell, he reached a wretched little peasant hut. It was so old it didn't know which way to fall, so it remained standing. The storm raged so fiercely that the duckling had to sit down to hold his ground. The weather grew worse and worse. At last, he noticed that the door had slipped off one of its hinges and hung crookedly, leaving a gap large enough to slip inside. And so, he entered the room. In the hut lived an old woman with her tomcat and her hen. The cat, whom she called Sunny, knew how to purr, arch his back, and even give off sparks if you stroked his fur in the dark. The hen had very short legs and was called Chicky Lowlegs. She laid good eggs, and the mistress loved her like her own child. In the morning, the strange duckling was immediately noticed. The cat purred, and the hen clucked. "What is this?" asked the mistress, looking around. But her sight was poor, and she thought the duckling was a fat duck that had lost its way. "What a stroke of luck," she said. "Now I shall have duck eggs. If only it isn't a drake, we shall see." So the duckling was taken on trial for 3 weeks, but no eggs came. The cat was the master of the house, and the hen was the mistress. They always said, "we in the world," for they imagined they were half the world, and the better half at that. The duckling thought one might have a different opinion, but the hen would not hear of it. "Can you lay eggs?" she asked. "No?" "Then have the goodness to hold your tongue." And the cat asked, "Can you arch your back, purr, and give off sparks?" "No." "Then don't offer your opinion when sensible people are speaking." So the duckling sat in the corner feeling very low, but suddenly a gust of fresh air and sunshine came into the room. The duckling felt a strange longing to swim. He could not help himself and told the hen. "What's come over you?" she asked. "You have nothing to do. That's why these silly thoughts enter your head. Lay eggs or purr, then you will become sensible." "Oh, but it is so pleasant to float on the water," said the duckling. "What a delight to dive to the bottom and feel the water close over your head." "A great delight indeed," said the hen. "You must be going mad. Ask the cat, the wisest creature I know. Ask him if he likes swimming and diving. I won't speak of myself. Ask even the old woman. She will tell you if she finds it pleasant to swim and feel the water over her head." "You don't understand me," said the duckling. "We don't understand you? Well, who could then? Do you think you are wiser than the cat or our mistress? I won't speak of myself. Don't be so vain, child, and be thankful for the kindness shown to you. Have you not found a warm room in the company of those from whom you could learn something? But you are a chatterbox, and it is unpleasant to have anything to do with you. Believe me, I only wish you well. I tell you unpleasant things, but that is how one knows true friends. Now try to lay eggs or learn to purr and give off sparks." "I think I had better go out into the world," said the duckling. "Safe journey," said the hen. And so the duckling went. He swam on the water and dived, but all the animals looked at him with contempt because of his ugliness. Autumn came. The leaves in the forest turned yellow and dry. The wind caught them and whirled them about. It grew cold. Snow clouds hung heavy over the earth, and on the fence stood a raven, croaking with cold. Caw, caw. Just thinking of it made one shiver. The poor duckling was having a very hard time. One evening, just as the sun was setting, a flock of beautiful white birds flew out of the woods. The duckling had never seen such beautiful birds. They were dazzlingly white with long, graceful necks. They were swans. The birds uttered a strange cry, and spreading their magnificent white wings, flew from the cold regions toward warmer lands across the sea. They rose higher and higher, and the poor ugly duckling felt a strange emotion as he watched them. He spun around in the water like a wheel, stretched his neck high after them, and suddenly let out a cry so loud and strange that it frightened even himself. Oh, he could not forget those beautiful, happy birds. And when they vanished from his sight, he dived to the very bottom, and when he came up again, he was beside himself with excitement. He did not know what these birds were called or where they were flying, but he felt a love for them, such as he had never felt for anyone in the world. He did not envy them. How could he even dream of wishing for such beauty for himself? The poor ugly duckling would have been happy enough if only the ducks would tolerate him among them. The winter was cold, terribly cold. The duckling had to keep swimming to prevent the water from freezing, but every night the hole in which he swam grew smaller and smaller. It was so cold that even the ice cracked. The duckling had to work his legs constantly so the hole wouldn't close entirely. At last, he lost his strength, stretched out, and froze fast in the ice. Early in the morning, a peasant came by. Seeing the duckling, he broke the ice with his wooden clogs and took the poor creature home to his wife. There the duckling was revived. The children wanted to play with him. No, to the duckling. It seemed they meant to do him harm, and in his terror he flew straight into the milk pail. The milk splashed all over the room. The mistress clapped her hands, and the duckling, completely confused, fell into the butter tub, then into the flour bin, and flew out looking so terrible he hardly looked like himself. Heavens, what a commotion! The mistress screamed and chased him with the fire tongs. The children ran laughing and shouting after him, tumbling over each other. Fortunately, the door was open. The duckling slipped through the bushes into the freshly fallen snow. There he lay, utterly exhausted. It would be too sad to tell of all the hardships and adventures the poor duckling had to endure during that harsh winter. When the sun began to warm the earth again, he was lying in the marsh among the reeds. The larks were singing. Spring had returned. Suddenly, the duckling felt his wings spread wide. They whirred more strongly than before and bore him swiftly onward. Before he knew it, he found himself in a large garden where the apple trees were covered in blossoms and the elderberry bushes scented the air, trailing their green branches over the winding canals. It was so beautiful here, smelling of spring. And then, from the thicket of trees, 3 magnificent white swans appeared. They rustled their wings and swam gracefully on the water. The duckling recognized these wonderful birds. A strange, sad feeling came over him. I will fly to them, to those beautiful birds. They will kill me for being so ugly and yet daring to approach them. But let it be so. Better to be killed by them than to endure the pecking of the ducks, the beating of the hens, and the hardships of winter. And the duckling flew into the water and swam toward the magnificent swans. They saw him, ruffled their feathers, and came straight toward him. "Kill me," whispered the duckling, and bowing his head to the water, he waited for death. But what did he see in the clear water? His own reflection, but no longer that of a dark gray bird, ugly and clumsy, but a white, graceful swan. It matters not to be born in a duck yard if only one is hatched from a swan's egg. Now the young swan thought with joy of the trials he had endured. Because of them, he could better appreciate his current happiness and all the splendor that surrounded him. And the great swans swam around him and stroked him with their beaks. At that moment, several children entered the garden. They began to throw bread and grain into the water, and the youngest of them cried, "Look, a new swan! Yes, a new swan has come!" The others cheered, and clapping their hands, they began to dance with joy. Then they ran to their father and mother, returning with bread and cakes which they threw into the water, shouting in unison, "The new one is the most beautiful of all, so young and so handsome." And the old swans bowed their heads before him. Then he felt quite shy and hid his head under his wing. He did not know what to do. He was very happy, but not at all proud, for a good heart knows no pride. He thought of how he had been chased and mocked, and now everyone called him the most beautiful of all beautiful birds. Even the elderberry bush leaned its branches right down to him, and the sun shone so warm and pleasant. Then he rustled his wings, stretched his slender neck, and cried out, dizzy with joy. No, such happiness I never dreamed of when I was still an ugly duckling.
Thank you for joining me on Fairy Tale Dreams. May your night be filled with the most magical dreams. Good night.